Last week, the House of Representatives passed a bill that would codify the 2015 decision of Burgerfeld versus Hodges. The Burgerfeld versus Hodges effectively legalized same-sex marriage in all 50 states. Now, if signed into law, this new bill, which is called the Respect for Marriage Act, it would repeal the 1996 Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA, which identified marriage as a union between one man and one woman. But now Democrats are singing a different tune, specifically President Joe Biden, who as a senator voted in favor of DOMA and several other initiatives that would fall within the conservative ideology today. The Respect for Marriage Act passed the House 267 to 157, including 47 Republicans. But now over 80 conservative organizations are telling Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell to say no to the bill that is effectively right now on its way to the Senate. Among the groups is Christian legal firm Alliance Defending Freedom, no stranger to me, no strangers to the Standing for Freedom Center. We interview them a lot. They do a lot of really great work, and they cover the stories that we like to write about. And joining me now is Alliance Defending Freedom Senior Counsel Matt Sharp, who also serves as the firm's State Government Relations National Director. Did I get that title right, Matt?
It's a mouthful, but you got it.
Let me tell you something. You guys at ADF, you guys have the most sophisticated titles. I don't know how you fit it all on a business card.
That's right. You get really small type.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you, Matt. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about a few things. One, this is definitely a shift from Joe Biden's ideology, probably pre-Obama years, although definitely going into the Obama years as well. But this, we haven't seen it just with this. We also see it with the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which I know your CEO, Mike Farris, certainly had an influence in back in, was it 1993?
That's
I think
right.
It was. Heavy House Democrat majority in the House, heavy Democrat majority in the Senate, and of course a Democrat president, and it passed with flying colors. And now they're shifting to the Equality Act today. So we're seeing a lot of ideological shifts here. But let's go back to the Respect for Marriage Act. You've done a lot of work with it, and now you guys are signatories on this list of over 80 organizations. Why are you guys doing it?
Well, the deceptively named Respect for Marriage Act really disrespects countless Americans that hold to the belief that marriage is between a man and a woman. And although the proponents say this is just merely codifying the Burgerfeld decision, when you look at it, it goes far beyond that and grants not only the federal government broad new sweeping powers to go after people of faith, those that believe marriage is between a man and a woman, but could potentially even jeopardize the tax-exempt status of many nonprofits out there, and give private groups like the ACLU the ability to sue people that hold to that belief that marriage is between a man and a woman.
Now, if I remember correctly, in 2015, in a Burgerfeld versus Hodges, Justice Kennedy, even though he faded, he ruled in the majority, he had that same concern. He's like, this decision really could compromise the religious convictions and the ability for people with those religious convictions to freely exercise them, to freely believe them, whether it be in commerce or even just in standard worship. So he's no longer on the court, but we are seeing that concern come to fruition, are we not?
Absolutely. In fact, during the oral argument, one of the most chilling responses was Justice Alito was asking Donald Verrilli, the Solicitor General of the U.S., about some of these religious liberty concerns. And he brought up the example of a religious college that holds to the view that marriage is between a man and a woman, and said, is their tax-exempt status at risk? And the Solicitor General of the United States said, yes, that is going to be an issue. And we're now seeing this play out. We've seen it bubble up in cases like Jack Phillips and Barronelle Stutzman, who are people that serve everyone but that don't want to be forced to participate or celebrate same-sex unions. And with the Respect for Marriage Act, we're now seeing Congress giving people the power to sue religious organizations, nonprofit organizations, faith-based adoption and foster care providers that simply want to continue to operate consistent with their beliefs about marriage. So that warning that happened in Burgerfeld, that the dissent warned about and that others warned about, we're starting to see play out. And I think this is one of many of those efforts to punish people of faith.
Well, that's great. Matt, you said a lot that really invoked a lot of what I've been covering over the last several years. I just hit 5 years in D.C. A couple months ago. My very first case to cover the Supreme Court was Masterpiece Cake Shop, which you talked about with Jack Phillips. Now, with Masterpiece Cake Shop, we had the Burgerfeld decision, which I know had played somewhat of a part in there. Now, with this Respect for Marriage Act, you said that it would, it has intentional language in there that says that people can sue. So we have another case coming before the Supreme Court, which I know you guys are at the helm at, 303 Creative with Lori Smith. So if this passes the Senate, which whether it will or not we can talk about in a second, but if it did pass the Senate and it was signed into law, Do you think that would have any effect on 303 Creative?
I think we could see a outpouring of more cases like that. With Jack Phillips, with 303 Creative, the reason they're getting sued, the reason they're in court is because Colorado has a law that gives this private right of action, this ability of people to sue because they disagree with Jack or Lori's beliefs about marriage. With this Respect for Marriage, so-called Respect for Marriage Act, Congress would be saying, we're going to give everybody in America that same right to sue religious organizations and others that are acting under color of state law, which means something like potentially an adoption provider that is working with the state, something like Samaritan's Purse when it opened that field hospital to help during COVID in New York, where they're working with the state, and now all of them could be subject to these same types of lawsuits that Lori and Jack and others like them have experienced.
I think of Little Sisters of the Poor and how this kind of case would bring them once again back to the Supreme Court. It's ridiculous. Really is.
Yeah.
So you guys are standing up and you're saying no. So how does this play out with Mitch McConnell? What do you got? What are your guys' hopes there?
Well, when we saw this pass in the House, like you said, with 47 Republicans joined, we think there was a lot of misinformation. Again, the supporters of this were saying, it's nothing to see here. We're just codifying Burgerfeld. But when you dive into the language like we have, we see this new private right of action. We see this potential ability for the IRS to come after those nonprofits that hold to views that marriage is between a man and a woman and say, we're going to strip that away from you. And so that's one of the reasons we put together this letter. We had the other 80 organizations join and sent this letter to Senator McConnell to say, this is a wolf in sheep's clothing. They are selling you and deceiving you about what this bill does. And if you care about people of faith, if you care about protecting the decent and honorable people that hold these views about marriage, that's what the Supreme Court, that's what Justice Kennedy said. This is a decent and honorable view of marriage. If you care about protecting them, then you need to vote no and stop this bill from moving forward.
Yeah. There's a few layers to my next question. One of them is, why even pass this bill if we have a Burgerfeld in place? It just seems like, if we have a Burgerfeld, we have a Supreme Court decision, it's the law of the land effectively, why have a law on it? Begs the question, or raises the question, is there something in this law that a Burgerfeld does not cover? From what I understand, there definitely is. But the other part of this is they're afraid that due to Justice Clarence Thomas's language in the Dobbs decision, there is a fear that a Burgerfeld could be overturned. Do you think there's any merit to that claim about Clarence Thomas?
Not at all. That is a completely disingenuous claim. There is no move going on right now to challenge any of those cases. And I think if you read Justice Thomas's opinion there, his concurrence, he was really saying we as a court need to make sure that we're laying out a good framework when we're talking about what is a fundamental right, what's constitutionally protected and what's not. I think that's a very originalist view of what the justices should be doing. But when we look at this so-called Respect for Marriage Act, it does nothing to change the status or benefits given to same-sex couples. Like you said, this is really about going after those that hold to the view that marriage is between a man and a woman, about empowering the government to go after them, again, about powering private litigants to go after these organizations because of their beliefs and target them for those. And so I think that's why we've got to call this bill what it is. It is a deceptive act. It is empowering the government and others to go after those that hold to the view that marriage is between a man and a woman.
Earlier I mentioned the RFRA, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and I saw how there are a lot of men and women who are in Congress today, who were in Congress in 1993 when they passed with flying colors, Democrats, right? And so there are several of those Democrats who are still in the House today, or a lot of them have gone over to the Senate. Either way, they're still in Congress, and they want the Equality Act, which the Equality Act has a clause in and of itself that says no to RFRA. It says no, you can't use this to basically support your religious freedom. So we see an ideological shift there with religious liberty, and now we're seeing it here with marriage. How are they getting away with this?
Yeah,
How are they? It's very bald face.
It absolutely is. It is a complete reversal. When they passed RFRA, when they passed DOMA, when they passed to these, there was a deep respect for countless Americans, people of all faiths, even people of no faith, that still said marriage matters and that there is something important about the union between a man and a woman for society, for human flourishing, for kids and families. And we're now seeing this reversal, not only just moving away from that understanding of marriage, but saying, and if you still hold to that view that has been held by every society since before recorded human history, if you still hold on to that view, you need to be punished. You need to be prosecuted for holding on to that view. And we've seen it play out in Jack's case. We've seen it play it out in countless others. And now this is an escalation of that and saying, not only do we want it to happen in the states, but we want the federal government to get in on the game and start coming after those of you that still hold to that millennial view that marriage should be honored as a union between a man and a woman.
Matt, I really appreciate the work that you and everyone at Alliance Defending Freedom is doing, has been doing, and I know will continue to be. I will be at the Supreme Court for the 303 creative case. I'll be covering that one like a hawk. My final question, and I ask everyone this, what is your advice for young Christians today who want to have some sort of impact in the political sphere?
Yeah, I would say, number one, don't be afraid to speak up. I know these are tough issues and that we're standing against a lot of forces, but these things matter. Marriage matters, family matters, religious freedom and free speech matter. And so to have the courage is to stand up, because when you do, you're going to see others emboldened by what you do. And then that's how you can really bring about change in the political process, by being willing to file the lawsuit or run for Congress or whatever it is to make a difference and stand for these values. So hold on to that courage to stand for what's right.
Matt, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it, brother.
Thanks for having me.